Raymond discovered the black eggs. What hatched changed everything. On a scorching morning, Raymond stumbled upon the black eggs inside his chicken house. No one in his family had ever seen anything like them before. They were as dark as midnight and smoother than any ordinary egg. His hands trembled as he picked one up, unsure whether he should feel fear or excitement. His chickens, however, wanted nothing to do with them. They huddled on the far side of the coop, clucking nervously as if sensing something unnatural. Life on his small farm had been anything but easy for Raymond. Unlike his 4 older brothers, who each owned large, prosperous farms and made more money than they could spend, Raymond struggled to make ends meet. The bank had already given him an ultimatum: 3 months to turn a profit, or they would take his farm away. Desperate, he had already sold most of his cows and chickens just to afford feed for the few animals he had left. But as he stared at the mysterious black eggs in his hands, a flicker of hope ignited within him. Maybe these eggs were different. Maybe they were valuable. Maybe, just maybe, they could save his farm. Logic told him to report them, to call the farm office or even his brothers, but something deep inside urged him to wait. He had spent his entire life as the brother who always failed, the one who never quite measured up. But now he had discovered something no one else had ever seen. Carefully, he decided to move the eggs somewhere safe until they hatched. His hands still trembled as he lifted each one. Despite the stifling heat of the morning, they felt strangely cold to the touch. He counted 5 eggs in total, each identical in size and color. Finding an old box, he lined it with soft hay and placed them inside. Perhaps, just perhaps, whatever was inside these eggs would change his fate. Raymond kept the black eggs in his house, where he could keep a close eye on them. Every morning before feeding his animals, he checked on them. Every night before going to bed, he made sure they were still safe. It didn't take long for him to notice something unusual. The eggs seemed to grow warmer each day, and when the house was completely silent, he could have sworn he heard faint sounds coming from inside them. A week later, he woke to an entirely new sound coming from the box, a soft, rhythmic tapping. His heart pounded as he hurried over. One of the black eggs had developed a tiny crack. Frozen in place, he watched as the crack slowly expanded. Holding his breath, he braced himself for whatever was about to emerge. Then, through the growing opening, he caught a glimpse of something breathtaking, a shimmer of gold. His hands trembled as the first egg split apart. Inside was a baby bird, unlike anything he had ever seen. Its feathers gleamed as if woven from pure gold, radiating a brilliance so dazzling that they lit up the entire room. The tiny bird lifted its head and gazed at Raymond, its eyes deep and knowing, almost as if it carried the wisdom of ages. One by one, the remaining eggs began to hatch, each revealing a golden bird more beautiful than the last. Tears welled in Raymond's eyes as he watched them, overwhelmed by their sheer magnificence. They were the most precious creatures he had ever laid eyes on. In that moment, he knew his life had changed forever. These birds would save his farm, of that he was certain. But more importantly, they had given him something far greater, something that was his alone. For the first time in his life, Raymond felt truly proud. He had discovered something wonderful, and he had been smart enough to keep it safe until it was ready. Raymond knew he had to keep the golden birds safe, but he also needed help to understand what they were. He waited until the baby birds were stronger, watching them grow more beautiful each day. Their golden feathers seemed to shine brighter in the sunlight, and they made sweet singing sounds that he had never heard from any normal bird. After 2 weeks, Raymond decided to call Jack, his oldest and kindest brother. When Jack arrived at the farm and saw the golden birds, he stood completely still for a long time, his eyes wide with amazement. Then he turned to Raymond and said something that made Raymond's heart feel full. "Little brother, you found something incredible." Jack helped Raymond take pictures of the birds and contact some bird experts at the big university in the city. The news spread fast through the farming community. Soon, people were offering Raymond large amounts of money just to see the golden birds. Reporters came from all over to write stories about the mysterious black eggs that had hatched into birds with feathers of gold. Bird scientists said they had never seen anything like them before, and rich collectors wanted to buy them for their private collections. But Raymond remembered how scared and alone he had felt when he first found those black eggs. He thought about how his chickens had stayed away from them, but he had kept them safe and warm until they hatched. These golden birds had trusted him from the moment they came into the world. He decided he would not sell them, no matter how much money people offered. Instead, Raymond built a special place for the birds on his farm where people could come to see them. He charged a small fee for visitors, and soon his farm became famous as the home of the golden birds. People came from all over the world to watch them fly and hear their beautiful songs. His brothers helped him manage the growing number of visitors, and for the first time, they treated him with respect and asked for his advice. The bank stopped threatening to take his farm away. Raymond had enough money to buy back his cows and chickens, and he even helped other struggling farmers in the area. But the best part was that every morning, when he went to feed the golden birds, they would flutter around his head and sing their special songs just for him. In those moments, Raymond knew that the real treasure wasn't the money or the fame. It was having the courage to believe in something magical when everyone else might have walked away. As the seasons changed, Raymond noticed something extraordinary happening with his golden birds. Their feathers began to shimmer with new colors when the moonlight hit them, creating tiny rainbows that danced across the farm at night. Visitors who came in the evening would gasp in wonder as the birds flew overhead, their feathers painting the sky with streams of colored light. One morning, almost a year after he had found the first black eggs, Raymond discovered something that made his heart skip a beat. In the special birdhouse he had built, nestled in a corner, were 3 new black eggs. They looked exactly like the ones he had found that life-changing day. The golden birds took turns sitting on these eggs, singing their sweet songs day and night. Word spread quickly about the new eggs. Television crews set up their cameras outside the farm, hoping to be the first to film whatever might hatch. Scientists begged Raymond to let them study the eggs, but he remembered how peaceful and private the first hatching had been. He decided to close the farm to visitors until the new babies arrived. His brothers supported his decision and helped keep curious people away. The waiting seemed to last forever. Raymond spent hours watching the parent birds care for their eggs, amazed at how gentle these magnificent creatures could be. He noticed that just like the first time, the eggs grew warmer each day. The golden birds' songs became softer and more melodious as the hatching time grew closer. Finally, on a quiet morning, Raymond heard the familiar sound of cracking shells. This time, when the eggs hatched, what emerged left him speechless with wonder. The baby birds were more beautiful than he could have imagined. Their feathers were like opals, changing colors with every movement. They sparkled with blues, greens, and purples, colors their golden parents had never shown. As Raymond watched the new family of birds together, he realized that the mystery of the black eggs might never be fully explained, but he didn't mind anymore. His farm had become a place of wonder, where people could come to believe in magic again. The golden birds and their rainbow babies reminded everyone who saw them that sometimes the most precious gifts come in the strangest packages. The old Raymond who had felt like a failure was gone. In his place stood a man who had learned to trust his instincts and believe in himself. His farm wasn't just successful now. It was a place where miracles could happen. Each morning, when he watched his beautiful birds soar through the sky, he thanked his lucky stars that he had been brave enough to give those mysterious black eggs a chance. As the opal-colored birds grew stronger, they began to show abilities that amazed even Raymond. On warm afternoons, they would soar high into the clouds and create stunning light shows that looked like the northern lights. People would pull their cars over on the highway just to watch the spectacular display. Soon the farm became known as Miracle Valley, and visitors said it was like stepping into a fairy tale. Raymond's brothers, who had once looked down on his small farm, now brought their own children to learn from him. They would sit for hours as Raymond explained how to care for the magical birds, his eyes twinkling as he described the day he found those first black eggs. The brothers worked together to build a proper sanctuary with large open spaces where both the golden and opal birds could fly freely. One particularly special moment came when a group of sick children visited the farm. As they watched the birds dance through the sky, their faces lit up with joy. The birds seemed to sense something special about these young visitors and flew down to perch gently beside them. To everyone's amazement, the children's laughter seemed to make the birds' colors grow even brighter. From that day on, Raymond began offering free visits to children's hospitals and schools. The next spring brought another surprise. Both the golden and opal birds laid eggs, but these were different from any before. Some eggs were silver like moonlight, Others were deep blue like the ocean. Raymond knew that whatever hatched from these eggs would bring new wonders to the farm. He thought about how far he had come from the day he found those first black eggs, when he had been so close to losing everything. Now his farm was more than just successful. It was a place of hope. People came not just to see the magical birds, but to remember that extraordinary things could happen when you least expected them. Raymond kept a photo of those first black eggs in his pocket, a reminder that sometimes the strangest discoveries could change your life forever. The local schools started bringing students to learn about the birds. Raymond would tell them his story, always ending with the same advice. Never be afraid of something just because it's different. Those black eggs looked scary at first, but they held the most beautiful secret I've ever seen. As Raymond watched both young and old visitors marveling at his birds, he realized that his farm had become something much more important than the successful business he had once dreamed about. It had become a place where people could believe in magic again, where they could remember that sometimes the best gifts come in the most unexpected packages. The morning the silver and blue eggs began to hatch, a soft musical sound filled the air. It was unlike anything Raymond had ever heard before, like wind chimes mixed with gentle whispers. The parent birds, both golden and opal, gathered around the nests, their feathers shimmering with excitement as tiny cracks appeared in the shells. What emerged from the eggs left everyone speechless. From the silver eggs came birds with feathers that looked like flowing water, rippling and moving even when they sat still. The blue eggs hatched birds that seemed to carry the night sky in their feathers, with tiny spots that twinkled like real stars. Raymond's farm had become home to a family of birds that seemed to come straight from dreams. As news spread about the new additions, something unexpected started happening. Other farmers who were struggling began to visit, not just to see the magical birds, but to talk with Raymond. They saw hope in his story, how he had gone from nearly losing everything to creating something wonderful. Raymond always made time to share his experience, remembering how lonely and scared he had felt before finding those first black eggs. The birds seemed to know when someone needed comfort. They would fly down and perch near visitors who looked sad or worried, their magical feathers glowing softly until smiles appeared on troubled faces. Children especially loved the star-feathered birds, which would create tiny light shows at dusk, making the farm look like it was covered in falling stars. Raymond's oldest brother, Jack, helped him write a book about the birds and the story of the black eggs. They called it The Magic of Believing, and it became popular with people who needed encouragement to keep going when times were tough. Raymond made sure every copy included his favorite message. Sometimes the things that scare us most turn out to be our biggest blessings. 5 years had passed since Raymond found those first black eggs, and his farm had become famous worldwide. Scientists still couldn't explain the birds' unusual colors or abilities, but Raymond didn't mind the mystery. He knew that some magic wasn't meant to be explained, just appreciated and shared with others. Every evening, Raymond would sit in his rocking chair on the porch, watching his magical family of birds soar through the sunset. The golden ones would lead, followed by the opal-colored ones, then the water-ripple birds and the star carriers, all of them making patterns in the sky that took people's breath away. In those moments, he would remember that scared farmer who once found strange black eggs and smile at how wonderfully life could change when you were brave enough to believe in something extraordinary. One quiet morning, as Raymond walked through his farm checking on the birds, he noticed something strange in the pond that his brothers had helped him build. The water was glowing with soft colors that matched his magical bird's feathers. At first, he thought it was just the reflection of the birds flying overhead, but then he saw that the glow was coming from beneath the water surface. Carefully, Raymond waded into the shallow water. There, nestled in a bed of smooth stones, were what looked like pearls. But these pearls glowed with the same magical light as his birds. Some shone golden like his first birds, others sparkled with opal colors, and some twinkled like stars. He counted 12 of them, each one perfectly round and warm to the touch. That same day, the magical birds began acting differently. They gathered around the pond, singing songs that seemed to make the water dance. The golden birds dipped their wingtips in the water, leaving trails of light that swirled like tiny galaxies. The star-feathered birds perched on nearby branches, sprinkling what looked like stardust onto the surface. Raymond called his brothers to see his discovery. As they stood around the pond, the oldest pearl began to crack. Unlike the eggs that had hatched birds, these pearls opened to reveal tiny creatures that looked like miniature dragons, each one matching the colors of his magical birds. They had delicate wings that sparkled in the sunlight and small friendly faces that reminded Raymond of his birds when they first hatched. The farm's visitors were amazed by the little dragons. Unlike the birds that mostly stayed in the air, these creatures would swim with children in the pond, leaving trails of colorful light in the water. They could also change size, sometimes growing as big as horses to give rides to sick children who visited the farm, then shrinking down to sit on people's shoulders like friendly pets. Word spread about Raymond's magical farm faster than ever. People said it wasn't just the incredible creatures that made the place special. It was the feeling of wonder and hope that everyone experienced there. The little dragons and magical birds seemed to work together to create incredible displays of light and color that made people believe anything was possible. One special morning, as Raymond watched the dragons playing with the magical birds, something extraordinary began to happen. All the creatures gathered together in a giant circle above the farm, mixing their different colors and lights. The golden birds flew with the star-speckled ones, while the dragons danced between them, creating patterns that looked like moving paintings in the sky. Suddenly, beams of light from all the creatures came together in the center of their circle. As Raymond and his visitors watched in wonder, the lights formed into what looked like a doorway made of pure rainbow colors. The magical birds and dragons lined up along this doorway of light, as if they were waiting for something or someone to come through. Then walking through the light came a woman whose silver hair floated around her like a cloud. Her dress seemed to be made from the same shifting colors as Raymond's birds, and her eyes held the same gentle wisdom he had seen in those first golden birds. She smiled at Raymond and spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Raymond," she said, "we have been watching you since the day you found those first black eggs. We needed to know if there was still someone in this world who could believe in magic without trying to control it. Someone who would protect it and share it with others who needed hope. You have proven to be that person." She explained that she was the guardian of magical creatures and that Raymond's farm had been chosen as a new sanctuary for beings from her realm. The black eggs, the pearls, and all the wonderful creatures that came from them were tests to see if this world was ready for magic to return. "Because of your kindness and the way you have used these gifts to help others," she continued, "we would like your farm to become a bridge between our worlds. More magical creatures will come, and they will help bring wonder and hope to people who visit this special place." Raymond could hardly believe what he was hearing, but then he laughed softly to himself. After everything he had seen since finding those first black eggs, why should anything seem impossible? He looked at his brothers, who stood nearby with tears in their eyes, and knew that together they would help protect this new magic. The guardian made one last gift to Raymond before stepping back toward the rainbow doorway. She waved her hand, and the entire farm began to glow softly, like it was covered in starlight. The old barns transformed into beautiful towers that sparkled with all the colors of Raymond's magical birds. The fields filled with flowers that glowed like tiny lanterns, and the pond where the dragons were born grew larger, its waters now shimmering with endless colors. "Your farm is now protected forever," she said with a gentle smile. "No storm can destroy it, no bank can take it away, and only those pure in heart will be able to find their way here." As she spoke, more magical creatures began coming through the doorway. Butterflies with wings made of crystal, rabbits that could jump through rays of light, and gentle deer whose antlers looked like branches of gold. Raymond's brothers stepped forward, and for the first time in his life, he saw them look at him with pure admiration. Jack, the oldest, put his hand on Raymond's shoulder and said, "Little brother, you've done something greater than all of us combined. You didn't just save a farm, you brought magic back to the world." The final change came as the sun set that evening. The black eggs that had started everything had left a special mark on Raymond himself. As he walked among his magical creatures, his eyes began to shine with the same light as his first golden birds. He could now understand their songs and speak to them in their own language. He wasn't just their caretaker anymore. He had become part of their magical family. Raymond kept his promise to share this magic with those who needed it most. Every week, children from hospitals would arrive to ride on the backs of friendly dragons and play with birds that painted the sky with light. People who had lost hope would visit the farm and leave with their hearts full of wonder again. The farm became known as the place where dreams take flight, and Raymond made sure its gates were always open to anyone who believed in magic. Years later, Raymond would often sit in his favorite spot, watching new black eggs appear in the most unexpected places around his farm. Each one would hatch something more wonderful than the last. But he never forgot those first eggs that had changed his life when he was just a struggling farmer who dared to believe in something magical. Did you enjoy this magical story? How would you feel if you discovered something extraordinary like Raymond's black eggs? What would you do if you were given the chance to protect something magical? Let us know in the comments below what mysterious discoveries you've made in your own life that turned out to be blessings in disguise. If this story touched your heart and made you believe in magic again, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Sometimes the most wonderful stories come to us when we need them most. Remember, just like Raymond, you never know when your luck might change. Sometimes the most extraordinary things happen on our darkest days. Thank you for joining us on this magical journey. See you in the next video and have a wonderful day.